Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm Joe, also known as Jay-Z Productions on YouTube. I got an amazing guest for the podcast. What is your name, sir?
My name is Jeff Kanew, which some people, if they're over a certain age, would actually be familiar with.
What are you doing during these times of quarantine?
Mostly worrying and feeling uncomfortable and trying to see my kids a lot. I came out from New York to LA where my kids live, and I've been staying here for 4 months. I used to live here for a really long time. I got kidnapped when I came out in 1983 to do a movie called Revenge of the Nerds. And I was just going to go back to New York right away, but then I stayed and I stayed and I stayed. And 35 years later, I finally moved back.
Oh, nice.
And now I'm here back in LA again.
Oh, that's really cool.
So that's what I'm doing. I'm here to service my children and worry about the world.
Nice. I think Revenge of the Nerds is such a classic and awesome film, by the way.
I'm glad you like it. That was a big surprise to me and to everybody associated with it. Nobody expected that to happen because it seemed like it was this little low budget, silly story with no real stars. And the studio just, I don't even know why they made it. I think the reason that I got involved was because the guy who was running the studio was a friend of mine, which is still how the world works. So he offered me this chance to do a film at Fox, and he sent me a bunch of silly scripts, and this was the least silly.
Nice. What made you want to become a director, and who's your biggest inspiration?
Well, growing up, I didn't want to become a director. I wanted to be a rock star.
Oh, wow, okay.
But that didn't happen, as probably many people can also say. So then I was trying to figure out what to do, and I got kicked out of college, and then one thing led to another, and I got a job working at a movie company as a kind of a gopher in the department that made movie trailers. Mm-hmm. And after a while, I realized, this is kind of fun. I like making movie trailers. So that became my first career. I was a trailer guy, and I did lots of trailers on lots of successful movies for about 12, 13 years. But then I got, I don't know, either burnt out or envious of all the people whose movies I was working on. And I decided I want to be a filmmaker too, because that way I'll be somebody. Uh-huh. So I made a couple of movies that nobody saw. And then Revenge of the Nerds was the first one I made that actually succeeded.
Inspiration for directing?
Well, everything I say will sound so typical. Of course, my favorite movies are the Godfather movies. So Coppola.
Those are good.
Let's see, The Graduate, so Mike Nichols, Sidney Lumet, because he's just really good, solid director, Sidney Pollack, who I worked on a lot of his films doing trailers, and I always thought he was very good with actors, good at casting, good at storytelling. A guy named Mark Rydell, similar, he did a film called On Golden Pond and a bunch of others, and he was a good guy. But on my list, I never mentioned like foreign directors, even though I do admire them, but I guess I grew up too American, so I never think of them first.
Okay. What is your favorite directing role that you've like done for like your whole career? Your favorite thing you directed
of all the films? Mm-hmm. I kind of feel like I have to say Nerds because it was the most successful and people know it. Mm-hmm. But the one that I think I enjoyed the most was Gotcha, which was a little film that followed Nerds that really wasn't successful at theaters, but in video and DVDs, it lasted a really long time, and people liked that movie. And I got to shoot in LA and Paris and Berlin with Anthony Edwards, who I really like working with, and Linda Fiorentino, who I really like working with. So that was a great experience for me. I kind of feel most fondly towards that movie.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards, like you mentioned, like it's Gilbert right there.
There he is.
Gilbert. Okay. If you could pick any movie, TV show, etc., is there anything you wish you would have directed? Obviously you didn't, but you wish you did.
Let's go back. Godfather. Anything Sidney Lumet did. Sure. I don't have them at the tip of my tongue, but yeah, there's so many really great movies. I mean, I just watched Primal Fear, a Richard Gere movie with Ed Norton. Love the movie. I watch it every time it's on. And there's a bunch of movies that I just watch every time they're on. So I guess I wish I directed those.
Over the years of your career, do you still keep in touch with like the stars and all that and the people?
Not so much. For a while, yes, but it's been quite a while since I've done films, so we've pretty much lost contact unless we bump into each other on the street. I had a really long-term relationship with Kirk Douglas, who recently passed away. But I did a film with him in 1982, and I was in awe of him, and he gave me a hard time, which we got over that, and we became friends. And then we did another film called Tough Guys together with Kirk Douglas and Burt Lancaster. And then I did some television stuff with Kirk, and then he got me a job doing a film in Russia that he was supposed to be in, but he bailed, so I ended up going by myself and having a very adventurous and painful time 4 months in Minsk. But Kirk and I stayed friends, and I directed a couple of his one-man shows in theater, and we've done a bunch of stuff together. And I'm sorry to have lost him because he was like the only guy who was hiring me.
Who's the coolest person you've worked with? Coolest person.
Coolest. Well, I probably will say Robert Redford because I was the editor of Ordinary People. And I always thought he was very cool. And whenever I worked with him, I had to control myself to keep from being a fanboy. But I'd say Redford was very cool. And Kirk was very cool. He was more of an elder statesman, but he was an amazing guy. Oh, and Paul Mazursky. That's a guy who's done a lot of movies, and we became really good friends in the 2000 era, and we stayed friends until he passed away. He was a great guy. But most of the actors, not so much. I mean, I don't see Shelley Long. I don't see Linda. Hal Holbrook and he was in the first real movie that I directed, and we got through it, but we didn't really become friends, so I don't see him. And the guys from Nerds, I still see them. I see Booger, I see Busfield, I see Anthony occasionally, Bobby Carradine occasionally, and I see some of the girls from Troop Beverly Hills.
Oh, that's cool.
Like Carla Gugino and Jenny Lewis, not so much because she's a big singer-songwriter now. But whenever there's a reunion movie, we all see each other.
That's cool. Do you still keep in touch with Andrew Cassess, Wurbser?
I saw him. Booger wrote a book about his career, and we went to a book signing in New York, and Andrew was there. So that was the last time I saw him. But he didn't look as cute as he did when he was a little kid.
If you were a director, what would your career be? And then what other interests and hobbies do you have besides directing?
Well, I kind of tipped it at the beginning. If I wasn't a director, I'd be a singer-songwriter if I was good enough. And I thought I was at the beginning, but now that I look back at Paul Simon and Billy Joel and the Beatles, and I realized, maybe I didn't deserve that success. Okay. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed writing songs.
Do you have any other interests and hobbies?
No. I'm a very boring one-note person. Yeah, okay. I really don't. I've played sports, but not that well. So they didn't become a lifelong thing. I played golf badly. I played tennis badly. I do a lot of things badly.
Okay. Favorite band and type of music?
Okay. So my roots are in early rock and roll. So when I listen, I get excited when I hear doo-wop music, which you may not even know what that is. Okay. But it's all those 4-part harmony things from the 50s and early 60s, the Four Seasons.
Oh, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons.
Frankie Valli, and Billy Joel and Paul Simon, Simon and Garfunkel, and then the Beatles. I had a band that we used to play live and sing, and then the Beatles came out and they became so famous that we were jealous of them. So at the beginning, I hated the Beatles, but now I realize they were amazing. So I'm in all of those guys too, and the Stones too. I once had dinner at a person's house in L.A. and 2 seats down from me was Mick Jagger, and I was very impressed. Talk much, but I was gaping at him.
That's cool. See, my favorite band, Queen, like We Are the Champions. Right?
Yeah. In fact, at the end of Nerd, as We Are the Champions, we got really lucky on that movie. The studio was willing to buy Burning Down the House, Talking Heads, and Thriller, and We Are the Champions. I mean, nowadays I don't think we could afford any of those as part of a movie score. But yeah, I love Queen. They're great. And I like the movie. And I like Rami Malek. I can't remember that he's not Freddie Mercury, the guy who played him in the movie. Queen's great.
And believe it or not, you mentioned Frankie Valli. I actually got to meet him in person.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, when you mentioned, because I like older music like that too, actually, believe it or not.
That's very good. It's very good. He actually lives out here in California near where I am right now.
Oh, really?
And I ran into him. I had never met him either. And I ran into him at a Starbucks.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't help it. I walked up to him. I said, listen, I know this is weird, but I wanted to say, I love your stuff. And I always have. He says, it's not weird. It would be weird if nobody came up to me. So he was happy that I came up to him and bothered him. Or at least he said that.
That's cool. It's awesome. Okay, hopefully when things get back to normal, sooner rather than later, are there any projects you have in the works?
I want to say yes, because there are a couple of things, but it's been a while since I got a movie made, so it's more of a struggle to get something made. I did a short film last year with actually my daughter, who wrote it and starred in it.
Oh, that's cool.
We were in a lot of film festivals with that little movie. It was called White Christmas. You can probably find it somewhere online. It's like 12 minutes long and depressing. There's nothing like directing your daughter playing a drug addict.
Oh, man. Okay.
So that, and I have a couple of scripts that I've had for a while that I don't know that I'd be able to easily get them made. I have one where this producer keeps calling me and saying, we've got the money, but she's always lying. So I don't think that'll happen. And then my daughter, again, I used to have Kirk Douglas who hired me. I think my daughter will hire me. She wrote a script that I really love, that I've been trying to put together. It's one of those things where if I got the right actress to star in it, I think the movie could get made, but I'm not sure they'd let me make it. But for my daughter's sake, I'd let it go and let somebody else make it. I love that script too. So there's those two things. And then I read a book that I thought was going to be great. I read it in the past couple of weeks. It was called Hitler's Last Day. It's not a comedy. It's about the last day and a half of Hitler's life when he was down in this bunker in Berlin with Eva Braun, who was his girlfriend. And it's basically that last day at the end of the war, and it leads up to them having a wedding in this bunker and then committing suicide together. So I thought this could be like a one-act play, or maybe a dramatic play on Broadway, just these two crazy people in this place with all their. But when I read the book, it was more about all the different battles being fought all over Europe, and Hitler was just waiting to do his thing, which he did, but it wasn't that interesting. So I'm not going to make Hitler's Last Day. I did a movie actually in 2001, the one I went to Russia to make, which was also a Holocaust movie. About the German invasion of Russia, and this makes me sound like a lunatic. I know it. There was this true incident at a place called Babi Yar, Babijjar, where they slaughtered 33,000 Jewish people in 3 days with machine guns, and then buried them. And this was a story about that event. And it actually got made, and it was in the Berlin Film Festival, but it never played in America. And we shot it in Russia, in Russian and German. Oh, wow. Which was a challenge because I don't speak either of those things. That was a very challenging but cool experience.
Yeah, believe it or not, because you actually inspired me, because I want to become a director. You actually inspired me.
Well, first thing you have to learn is never speak truth to power. Meaning, if there's anybody who's in a position to hire you, don't be blunt and honest with them. They like people who are they like you when you're talented, and if you're talented and you have success, you can be yourself. But otherwise, you have to be likable too. I forgot that when I was starting out. So I thought, okay, now I'm a director, and now I can make the movies that I want to make, and I can defend them, and I don't have to like kiss ass anymore. But I was wrong.
Okay. Yeah, actually, also, I believe it or not, I write scripts for a hobby. Besides podcasts, I write scripts.
Well, writing script is important. In fact, it's still probably the best way to get your shot as a director if you write the script, because sometimes they'll take a chance. Yeah. It's because it's happened often. Quentin Tarantino started off writing scripts. Coppola was a screenwriter. Martin Scorsese, no, he didn't write his own script, but he always had someone who worked with him, and he got great scripts out of those people.
Mhm.
So yeah, be a writer. It's a good thing.
Okay. What advice would you give younger people who also want to become a director?
Well, okay, so if you can write, try to write your own
Script.
piece, and so you can give yourself your first directing job, low budget, write yourself a movie. Sometimes that helps you springboard forward. Otherwise, just try to work. I have a friend. She was an editor on Nerds and on a couple of my other movies, and she was trying to be an editor, but she really wanted to be a director. And I think it's finally happening after like 30 years. She's going to get a chance to direct.
That's cool.
I mean, there's lots of ways of going at it. Always listen to the other.
Okay.
Right? Because she's your ticket to success, or not. No, I don't. Casting. If you really want to be a filmmaker, casting, aside from having a good script, casting is key, because if you cast it right, it works. And if you cast it wrong, even a good script can be messed up. So pay a lot of attention to actors and who's around, and I always find that to be real important. Some filmmakers, all they care about is the images, the look, cool shots. So I'm a little more about telling stories and performances. So, okay.
Good advice.
What else to talk about? Zito, what kind of a name is that? Is that Greek?
Italian.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Italian's the
How about
best.
what's Kanew? What is it? I feel like
Kanew started in Russia as Kanievsky.
Oh wow, okay.
My grandfather came over from Russia, Ellis Island, where everybody was immigrating in. I guess the guys didn't like all those funny sounding names, so they just took the SKY off his papers. So it went from Kanievsky to Kanew. So that's where that comes from. So that's but cool. Italian's better. I grew up in mostly Italian neighborhood, and I always wished I was Italian. I always pretended I was Italian.
That's cool. Wow.
All right.
Do you have a favorite sport?
Favorite sport? It's been a while since I used to like watching football. I used to play baseball, but watching baseball is a little boring. I never played soccer. I never played hockey. I played basketball in 9th grade, and I was the worst guy on the team, so I only did that once. So football is the one I like to watch the most. But I get annoyed now because I see a lot of people who are like so into sports as fans, but they don't play, and it just feels like they're sort of parasites on the guys who play. I'll tell you a story. This is not the first time I've told this story, but just as an ending. Okay, so I had done a couple of movies that didn't do well, and this friend of mine got a job in a powerful position at 20th Century Fox, and he offered me Revenge of the Nerds. So I read the script, and I called him. I said, all right, I would do this Revenge of the Nerds thing because I can kind of relate to it. And he said, well, here's the problem. The producers have seen your other films, and they don't want to talk to you. But I'm going to force them to have a meeting with you. So I had to fly out to LA and have a meeting with these guys who didn't want to meet with me. But somehow I must have done a good job in that meeting, and I don't know if I was funny or if I sounded smart or whatever it was. After the meeting, when it went on a pretty long time, I thought, I think I kind of did pretty well. And my friend calls me and he goes, how'd the meeting go? I said, I think it went well. And he said, yeah, you made one mistake. I said, what was that? He said, you said Risky Business was a better movie than Animal House. And I said, well, it was.
It is, yeah.
Animal House was funny and a big hit, but Risky Business is a really good movie. He goes, so what kind of a movie are you going to make out of this script? I go, well, this is a sillier script than Risky Business, so I'll make the best movie I can. He goes, you're not listening. What kind of a movie are you going to make? And I said, I know, you want me to say Animal House. He said, that would be good. I said, well, I'm going to try to make it as funny as it can be, but I want the characters to be real. I don't want it to be a cartoon, and I want it to have a point, and I don't want it to just be a bunch of jokes. He says, what kind of a movie are you going to make? I said, all right, look, I told some people that I was going to LA to audition for a job directing a stupid teenage comedy. And he said, now we're talking. And I said, all right, I'll tell you what, I'll make a movie that I'm ashamed to put my name on. And he says, you got the job. That was the story of me and Revenge of the Nerds. And all the people in it, Anthony, Bobby, no one wanted to be in it because they all thought it was going to be a cartoon. And I had to swear to everybody, no, we're going to try to keep the characters real and make it, you know, a story that people could relate to and not just a bunch of guys with tape on their glasses. So that's what we all tried to do. And I guess it worked to a certain extent because people liked it.
Enjoy it. Yeah. So, like, in my opinion, it's a classic. In my opinion.
Okay. Well, there you go. Can I write that on my tombstone? Joe Zito says Nerds is a classic.
Well, on the podcast, I'm going to say thank you all so much for watching. Thanks again, Mr. Kanew, for being a guest.
You asked good questions. This was a good conversation. So
thank you.
And I hope you make it as a filmmaker. And when you have your first successful film, I'm going to start a podcast and interview you. What do you think about that?
That sounds good. Sounds good.